A little hiccup in the hiccup in the stream there, just like my voice. Welcome guys to episode 58. The otherwise known as kind of the crazy hair episode. I apologize
for half of us.
If it just looked like I rolled out of bed, because I did.
Because you did.
I'm excited to talk about some Star Trek. So, Bill, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about a couple different things. We are not at Star Trek Las Vegas, but we're going to kind of talk about it. We're going to talk about our kind of like perfect scenario for going to a Star Trek convention, like people we'd want to meet. The way I kind of thought about it was like, who would I want to get like a photo op with or get an autograph from? Who would I want to see in a panel? And the answer is everybody. But trying to narrow it down to like the 5 must-see people that would like make my weekend if I got to, spend a couple minutes with them, get an autograph, say hi, get a photo. That's kind of how I thought about it. These are like Star Trek celebrities as far as I'm concerned, like not fans, because I want to see all the fans, and that kind of goes without saying. The real reason I want to go to STLV or any Star Trek convention is to, see the people, like the regular people. That kind of goes without saying. But yeah, Groppler Zoran says the sound seems really low. Or is it just him?
Bumped it up a little bit for you, Groppler.
Yeah, let us know if that's any better.
For me,
yeah, go ahead.
I just went with, because I was kind of torn, like, do I want to do like, okay, I kind of want to see, like, sometimes, they have a panel where like it's all the behind the scenes people and the directors and the writers. I want to see those people too, but also I kind of went just with strictly actors, and then maybe actors that do kind of both behind the scenes and acting. So I tried to sneak that in there also. So I just went with actors. Yes. Uh-oh. We can't hear Bill now. Can you hear me? Maybe I'll try to ad-lib for you as you talk. Go ahead and clap. Yeah, I can't hear you for some reason. Can you guys hear him? Or is it just me? Bill is, in fact, gone. For some reason, levels are up on my end. We'll be right back. How's that, guys? Hopefully I can hear him.
Can you guys hear me?
Hopefully you guys can.
Let us know if you can hear me. Wait for the 10-second delay.
Yeah, here we go.
Yes,
we're good. Cool. Okay. Yes, back to what I was saying. My list is comprised of mostly actors, so yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, so mine, like I was saying, maybe you didn't hear me, guys, since my audio is crapping out, but mine is mostly actors. I have actors. I have some more nebulous, like behind the scenes groups. Like you'll see. But like I said, I mean, this is a really tricky thing to do because I really do want to see everybody. Like, there is narrowing this down was extremely, extremely difficult because I haven't been to a Star Trek convention since I was like 10 or 11. So I really, really want to go back. I really want to get to one. And there have been a lot of new people that have come to Star Trek since the last time I was at a convention. There are some older folks that I remember seeing back in the day that I would like to see again now that I'm older. So this was a complicated list to whittle down, but I'm excited to talk about it. But in addition to that kind of fun little topic discussion about Star Trek conventions on the week of the biggest Star Trek convention, yesterday there was obviously like this earthquake of Star Trek news, new developments, new series announced that I think we have to talk about, obviously. So I'm sure everybody, if you're watching this, know what happened yesterday. Alex Kurtzman came out and said he was going to announce the new Star Trek show, but he didn't want to do it himself. He was going to bring somebody out that could talk about it better. And Patrick Stewart comes trotting out, and Jean-Luc Picard is back. He's going to be in a new television series. I think it's interesting that they didn't say limited series. They didn't say mini series. They said television series.
Series.
One assumes that it's going to be a show that runs as long as it can or needs to run, which is fascinating to me. I kind of always assumed that if he was going to come back, it was going to be for something kind of shorter burst, like a mini series or something limited. I mean, does this idea excite you, Dan? I mean, I'm sure maybe it goes without saying, but like, what did you think when you saw this news?
When I saw the news, I stopped everything, threw the video up on my TV, watched it. I'm super excited, but boy, was I wrong. I think a couple episodes we kind of talked about this idea, and I thought it was just kind of a long shot, but little did I know that was not the case, and I think that everyone's excited. So.
Yeah, it seems like out of nowhere. Like we were talking to Thad, I think was it 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about kind of this very thing. Like he was getting ready to go to Star Trek Las Vegas, and he was talking about that. This was right after all the news from Comic-Con with the trailer for season 2 of Discovery and all that exciting stuff. And he was going to Las Vegas under the assumption that we might get like a little tidbit about Discovery's second season, but no like earth-shattering news. Usually they don't reveal anything huge at Vegas. Usually that's Comic-Con or some like formal press kind of thing. So I certainly wasn't expecting anything to this level of magnitude yesterday, but it really shook things up. Like people were really excited and people were emotional in the theater apparently. And like, it was a huge deal. So yeah, it's exciting on a whole lot of levels. Like, going back to when Discovery was kind of first announced and there was the idea of a new Star Trek show, there was a lot of consternation that it was going to be a prequel. People wanted to go beyond Nemesis and see what was happening in the 24th century, post Voyager, post Deep Space Nine. And it seems like people are finally getting that. Like, so after a lot of that consternation and heartache about the style of show that we ended up getting in Discovery, which you and I are big fans of, but a lot of people had pushback against that, are going to finally kind of get what they were kind of asking for from the beginning, which is the continuing story for the 21st century continuity. So the other thing that really excites me about this idea is because of it being set 20 years after Nemesis, which is roughly where we are now, 20 years after Nemesis was produced, like 18, 19 years by the time this probably goes on television. You can use any actor or any character from TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. They're all kind of on the table. Like,
opens the door wide open. Yeah.
So, do you maybe see the Titan with Captain Riker and Troy? It would make a whole lot of sense. I mean, my guess would be that the character that makes the most sense to bring back, like of all the TNG characters, who's probably the most likely to be involved in Picard's life 20 years later? It's probably Beverly Crusher. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if you see Gates McFadden in some capacity on this show. But there's no end to the possibilities. And that's what really excites me. Picard, as I've said many times, is like my favorite character in fiction, let alone Star Trek or The Next Generation. So getting him back is one thing that's like beyond exciting, but all these other possibilities are huge.
Yep. Yeah. And what kind of excited me about watching the video is you could see the excitement and the passion and the fire still in Patrick Stewart about Star Trek. So that's awesome because I think that's just going to go right into the show and make for an awesome television series.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I noticed that too. He seemed excited about it and
Mhm.
really kind of moved by the reaction in the room.
Yeah.
You know, like people were genuinely really excited. Obviously, it was
Mhm.
a huge surprise to see him there. He wasn't on the guest list. I don't think people were expecting him to be there at all, let alone there to announce something like that.
Yeah.
So the whole like mood in the room, I think really, I think at one point didn't he say like just that reaction makes the whole thing worth it,
Yeah.
regardless of how the next 2 years go or
Yeah.
next few years go, like that. And you felt that. I felt that watching him.
Yeah.
So that kind of excitement, I think, is really exciting for us
Mhm.
to see he's engaged with it and excited about it, and he doesn't seem at all like he's sleepwalking through it or it was just cash grab. Like
Yeah.
he
No.
sounded like he was resistant to it initially and
Yeah,
was
he was.
only excited by the concept. Um, the idea, I guess, is exciting enough to make him feel like it's worthwhile going back
Mhm.
and opening Picard up again.
Mhm.
So yeah, and he obviously said that Picard's probably not a captain anymore, which I think makes a lot of sense if it's 20 years later. You know, he had been, I mean, in Nemesis, he had been captain in the Enterprise for like 20 years up to that point,
Mhm.
almost like 15 years, I guess. So it makes perfect sense that he's kind of moved beyond and is in the next chapter of his life. And I think that's a really exciting idea. Um, who knows what that'll be, if he's an admiral or, an
He's
ambassador
not
or
even in
in
Starfleet.
Starfleet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So many
there's
possibilities.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's what's exciting about it. I don't think I would be. I'm glad that it's not like he's just the captain of a ship or still the captain of the Enterprise 20 years later. Like I think it's going to be interesting to see a new spin on the character and um, yeah, some new ideas.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, Rob's asking, what does everyone think his role will be? Like, what do you think, Dan? Like, where do you kind of expect? What do you think he's going to be doing 20 years
Well,
later?
I think Patrick Stewart is 78,
Something like that. Yeah,
around there.
sounds about right.
So I don't think he will be as like an active role as like a captain, which they've
Yeah.
already said. But
Mhm.
I could definitely see an ambassador. I could definitely see out of Starfleet. I think that would
Mhm.
definitely ruffle some feathers, and I think um, we've already kind of established that this new wave of Star Trek creators aren't afraid to ruffle some feathers. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Rob
Yeah, and
citing
that's
Rob
yeah.
citing teaching maybe.
And my guess would be it's something like something pulls him back in. There's some sort of thing that's happening somewhere that kind of calls for his expertise or something, and it
Mhm.
he has to go out and deal with something. Like I can kind of imagine something like that.
Mhm.
They kind of implied in the video, or Patrick Stewart was implying in his talk that he's dealt with a lot of things. Like his life is a lot has happened to him in the 20 years since.
Mhm.
So who knows? Like there's obviously kind of an implication there that maybe he's battling some demons and things didn't maybe end super well, and he's having to battle a lot of maybe negativities towards Starfleet. And he has to, like, to me, dramatically, that would kind of make sense that he would have to go through that kind of journey, that kind of arc,
Mhm.
maybe recapture his old, lust for
Yeah.
exploration and that kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
he's lost some of that in his old age, and something happened at the end of his career, and now he's got to go recapture it.
Yeah.
Like that seems to make sense, and it seems like it fits in the box of the kinds of things that the guys who are running Star Trek now seem to be interested in doing, like
Yeah.
shaking things up, not
Yeah.
sticking to the old formula,
Mhm.
doing new and interesting things conceptually, putting
Mhm.
characters in different kinds of positions and not just sticking with the traditional captain and six other cast members in the crew, and like we kind of had for the 90s and early 2000s. Starfleet Boy wants to know what your cat's name is.
Starfleet Boy, welcome, and that is Pete. I think that he probably has a cameo probably every episode, every other episode. So
he used to have a really big habit of jumping on the desk and being literally right in front of the camera. He hasn't done that in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Not since you moved into the new place.
Yeah.
But he used to be right up close and personal. So that may happen before the end of the show. Yeah, Rob saying it might be cool to see him at Starfleet Academy. One thing I did notice is a Variety article came out yesterday that, and I think Ted Sullivan even said it too, that Kirsten Beyer, who's a writer on Discovery, at least was in the first season, big time Star Trek novelist, wrote a whole bunch of Star Trek Voyager novels, was behind the concept of this show, and I guess is in some sort of creative role.
Big advocate for this.
Yes. And that gives me a lot of confidence because that's a continuity person. That's somebody who really knows Trek, who's coming up with this idea. So I don't think we have to worry about things being too far like off the wall and too crazy. And unlike Discovery and unlike Enterprise and like the Kelvin timeline, because this takes place 20 years after Nemesis, there's no continuity to violate. Like anything that they do is taking place beyond what we've seen. So they can do whatever the heck they want. They can, whether we like it or not, whether you like it or not, is up to you. But there's no threat of, ruffling feathers from that perspective. Like, oh, that shouldn't have happened or anything like that. They can't violate canon because they're going beyond established canon.
Which I think is good because they're not really put in a box. They're
exactly.
They can do whatever they want. So and they're
for sure.
Yeah.
And given, like I was just saying, with the last handful of new Star Trek iterations, I think that's going to be really refreshing to kind of have a new Star Trek that you don't have to worry about like how things fit in the continuity and feeling like you're maybe constrained a little bit by, we'd love to do this, but we can't really do it like that. So we have to adjust and make it fit exactly. I think it'll be exciting to see a Star Trek again that is able to really push the envelope and not be fearful of shaking things up. So that's really exciting to me too, and that's a common talking point for a lot of people out there who don't like Discovery and didn't like Enterprise and don't like the Kelvin timeline, and so that should make people happy, hopefully. What kinds of characters do you think from TNG or Deep Space Nine or Voyager, like who would you like to see come back? Who would make sense to you to see again? Like, who's on your list of characters that you'd like to see make an appearance in a show like this?
I would love to just have a good mixture of old and new. I don't want to be like a hey wink wink look at this character right here like that, like too much of that. I'd like to be like a really good balance of old and new characters, and maybe so
I totally agree with that. I hope that it's not. I think they have to be careful with not making it a who's who of cameos and just bringing people out to bring them out. I'm all for bringing those characters back if they make sense within the storyline and they feel natural. And I obviously want new characters too. Like I think that's important, to give the show its own personality and give it its own voice. I'm hoping for the obvious new voices, new characters, new faces. But as far as characters that make sense to me, like I said, I think Crusher would make a lot of sense. I think just naturally that character would make sense to still be kind of tied to Picard's life 20 years later. I mean, the TNG crew is certainly like a family, so I think any of them could make sense. But because of the personal connection with Crusher, I think that adds up. I think Rob saying Riker surely, and since he's obviously involved with like directing Discovery, and I think it's probably even money that he would direct an episode of this show. I think we'll be seeing his name attached somehow, so that would certainly make sense. But I'm just excited about the opportunity to see some of those old faces again in ways that would make sense. Like if it's 20 years after Nemesis, that's about as long as like it's contemporaneous. So, if you see Tim Russ and he's aged 20 years, then it kind of makes sense. It's not a stretch to see any of those actors, any of those characters again in a new show. And that's extremely fun to think about, getting to see some of those characters again. In the novels, Geordi and Worf are still in the Enterprise. I guess after Nemesis, they're kind of the few that hang around. So, I mean, I guess my question to you, Rob, would be like, how far along after Nemesis do those novels go? Like, are the current novels that are kind of rolling out in that time period, is that like years after Nemesis? Because 20 years is certainly a long time. Like I said, 20 years since Nemesis is more time than Nemesis after Encounter at Farpoint. Like more time has passed since Nemesis than had passed between Encounter at Farpoint, beginning of TNG, and Nemesis.
Mhm.
So we're talking a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah. Think what else? But what I was saying, I'm sorry, I kind of got sidetracked there. The thing with Kirsten Beyer that I think is important is they are developing supposedly a Starfleet Academy show, and that's the show that they kind of threw names out there. People who the showrunners for, I think it was Gossip Girl and one of the Marvel shows, The Runaways. I think maybe was it?
Yeah.
They're developing a Starfleet Academy show, and those names are not attached to this project, according to Variety. So I think it's safe to assume that Starfleet Academy, this is not the Starfleet Academy show. Like, I don't think this is that show, and Patrick Stewart's going to be like the commandant of Starfleet Academy or the head of it. Like, I think that's a different thing based on reading the tea leaves of like who's producing this show and who was supposedly producing that idea. So I don't think this is the Academy show. I don't think, and if they're doing an Academy show, I have a feeling they won't involve Starfleet Academy too much with this idea. I think it's going to be kind of removed from that, assuming they're still planning to have a show that's centered around Starfleet Academy. But I guess you never know. That's just me kind of guessing that I think they'll maybe avoid that setting a little bit. The Adventures of Picard and Dash. That would be interesting. That would make a lot of people very happy. There are a lot of Vash fans out there. A lot of Picard Vash shippers. Yeah, Grapplers aren't saying there could be crossover. We were kind of just talking about that. Yeah, I mean,
if it makes sense with the story, I think that.
Yeah, if it makes sense with what's going on, whatever is drawing Picard back into things, assuming he's retired and kind of removed, like I was speculating. If there's a natural connection to whatever this new thing is that's kind of drawing him out with a character from one of those shows, that's awesome. I think that'd be great. The exciting thing is that the possibilities are endless. There is no shortage of roads they could go down, things they could use. And I'm hoping that the audience response to this show in its early development, I'm hoping that it's positive. Like I'm hoping for something that the vast majority of fans can really get behind, and maybe it'll be a little bit of a smoother ramp up than Discovery had. Hopefully we won't have all the knock on wood. Exactly. Yeah. It would be nice to have a show that maybe doesn't have quite as much controversy surrounding its rollout. It'll sure make for a change of pace, but I won't hold my breath. Like I've said many times, I'm old enough to remember the beginning of Enterprise, and I remember sort of like the beginning of Voyager, and I've read about the beginning of the other shows, and they're always, controversial, and there's always a lot of, pushback to new ideas and stuff. So, and they tend to settle over time, and people come around to them or not. But so history would tell us that there will be some things that will ruffle feathers. It starts to come together, and people figure out what it is. But I'm definitely fingers crossed that it's a little smoother than the last one. So. Do we see a more advanced Enterprise under the command of a different officer? Enterprise F. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Anything. I think there's certainly that possibility. But Starfleet Boy is asking, what do we think the air date will be? Obviously, it seems green lit by the fans based on reaction. Expect something sooner than 2020. I don't know. That is a good question. I guess it depends on how far along they are in the development phase. I mean, if he just signed, it sounds like it's been. Didn't he say something like earlier this year?
Yeah, in spring or something like that.
Conversation started
or something. Yeah.
I think 2020 probably makes some sense. I think 2019 is probably overly ambitious, given how long it took Discovery to get off the ground. I mean, obviously they had a lot of production hiccups and staffing hiccups along the way that hopefully this show might not have. But getting a show like this, something of this size, I'm sure, off the ground is a huge undertaking, and CBS has kind of shown that they're, not going to rush it. they're going to take their time and put the work in before they're not it's not a network. It's not like a traditional network where shows premiere in either September or January and they have to meet a deadline. They can kind of make their own deadline. They're not constrained by like the constraints of like network scheduling. And I think they're taking advantage of that. They can kind of premiere whenever they want.
Which I would rather have them take their time and do it right than.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. Especially something like this. If they're doing this, if they're bringing him back and he's involved, there's going to be as much scrutiny as there was on Discovery for being like the first thing back and something new. And I know I was just saying I hope it's going to be like a smooth rollout, but involving Patrick Stewart again and having Picard come back, people are going to be really invested in that, and they're going to want it to be really, really good. So it's important to take their time and do it right and make sure it makes sense and it's well done. The worst thing they could do is rush it out. So I think 2020 at some point makes some sense. And the last thing I kind of want to just say about this, and I'm not doing this to toot my own horn, but I did say like a long time ago when this whole thing was kind of starting that if Discovery was successful and CBS All Access didn't die.
Oh, here we go. He's got to get his paycheck in.
I called it. Yep. I promise I'm not a shill. CBS does not. But I had a lot of confidence that they were going to want to fill their calendar with Star Trek content. And it's kind of a built-in fan base, and it keeps subscribers, active. So I was really confident that if Discovery was a success and they were happy with the way All Access was kind of rolled out and they felt it was sustainable, that we were going to get more Star Trek content. So hopefully people can, people who don't like Discovery for whatever their good reasons are or may be, hopefully they're grateful to Discovery for being at least successful enough to give us Patrick Stewart coming back as Picard. Because without, if Discovery would have failed miserably and CBS All Access would have died a horrible death in a few months, this certainly would not be happening. This news would not have come about. We would not be getting more Jean-Luc Picard. So that's exciting to me, and I kind of called it.
Rob makes a great point. I wonder if the new Picard series will encourage new fans to go back and watch TNG. Hopefully.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we've heard a lot of over the years is like the Kelvin Timeline movies inspired a lot of new young people to kind of go back and pick up TOS because they fell in love with the characters and they wanted to see more of that world. So if it's well done and new fans find it and are are into it, I think that's very likely. Yeah. Anything else kind of come out of Las Vegas that it's been kind of quiet as far as like big news goes? I think that other than that, I mean, that was gigantic, and I think a lot of the Discovery panels are today. Like Sonequa Martin Green and Doug Jones and Anson Mount and Anthony Rapp, they're all today. So maybe there might be some tidbits later today from
goodies
season 2. Yeah, I certainly hope so. But so I think that'll do it for that part of the conversation, right?
Yep.
And we can kind of talk about who we'd like to see at a Star Trek convention, preferably STLV. It's kind of where I hope to make my Star Trek convention sort of debut after 20 years away at some point. Who we'd like to see. And then I also kind of want to just talk about our kind of hopes and aspirations for Las Vegas, like, other than just seeing actors and celebrities, like what makes us want to go, like what do we look forward to kind of experiencing there. So like Grappler Zorn real quick, as somebody here who I know was at Star Trek Las Vegas, he's saying STLV was amazing. For a few days you were there. Please, spam the comments with your experiences. Tell us like what you liked about it, and
spare no detail.
Tell us your favorite things. Tell us, things that you do differently. I want to hear it from somebody who's there. So fill us with your information. If anybody else in here, Rob, I don't think you've been Starfleet Boy, I don't really know you that well, so if you've been there, obviously same thing. Tell us if you have experiences to share from Las Vegas or any convention really. But yeah, I guess we should just start going down our list. Like, who are the 5 people that came to mind for you? It's like, who's your number 5 person that you'd like to meet?
I'll just say that it was really, really tough to kind of narrow it down. Yeah, I'll just say that. My number 5. This was kind of came out of nowhere, and I want to see, and this kind of might surprise people, but I want to see Kenneth Mitchell because I think ramping up to Discovery last year at STLV, I would see his panel, and he was just cool, and speaking the language, and I think it would just be fun to be able to see him, and I didn't really expect a Discovery cast member to kind of make it on my list. And I just wanted to do something different, so I went with Kenneth Mitchell as my number 5.
That's a really cool outside the box pick. Like he definitely was kind of like, I think, the star of this show last year from that lineup of Discovery actors. The way he was speaking Klingon with like really convincing gusto, and just seems like a really likable guy. He was there yesterday, I think, and I saw a little clip of him kind of doing the same thing. He wasn't speaking Klingon, but he was saying a line that I don't think I heard in season 1. I don't know. And he did say he's coming back somehow in season 2, which is really surprising. I don't know how that's going to work, but he says he's in season 2.
Different Klingons. I don't know.
Who knows? But he said a line that was pretty cool, and he was like as Cole. He just seems like a genuinely cool guy. He's really cool on Twitter. He's really cool on Instagram. He's very engaged. Yeah. So that's a cool one. For me, my number 5 that I picked was I have a couple Discovery people here, and I'm being honest here. Like it's the current thing. So right now I'm really interested in kind of hearing from people that are making Star Trek now. And my number 5 was Jason Isaacs. And I went with him largely because, from all reports of people who saw him this year, there were people who have been going to Star Trek Las Vegas for, 10 years, who've been there many, many times over the years, saying that he was like the best panel of all time, like that they've ever seen. So that's intriguing to me. The other thing that really interests me about Jason Isaacs is he's an actor that has a really interesting career beyond Trek. Like he's got other things that I'd be interested to hear about. And again, seems just like a really genuinely cool guy, and has a fun sense of humor. Like he just seems like somebody that'd be cool to kind of get to know. I actually watched his panel on YouTube. I found it, and it was awesome. I'd love a photo op with him. I'd love to be there for one of his panels. I think it sounds like he's going to be a regular, like somebody who comes back. I don't think this was like a one-time deal for him. So, and like I said a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Discovery, like in our rewatch segment where we kind of usually talk about where we are and watching Star Trek. My takeaway from my recent rewatch of the first season was just more reinforcement about how awesome his performance was as Lorca. I really think he was ingenious for a lot of that season. So my appreciation for the performance has really grown even more than it already was in recent weeks, and he's somebody I'd definitely like to see.
Yes.
Yeah. Rob is saying Gersha Phillips, who's the costume designer on Discovery, who is somebody who's really cool. Like we're all about, I think both of us, like really interested in like behind the scenes people.
Yes. Yep.
So somebody like Gersha Phillips is somebody I would 100% love to see.
I'd love to.
What about you? Who's your number 4?
Number 4, I went with Robert Duncan McNeil because I feel like I wanted to get a Voyager kind of in there. And he kind of also has kind of, like I mentioned before, like kind of behind the scenes kind of stuff he could share also. So, yeah, that's my number 4.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Grappler Zorn's talking about real quick before I go to my number 4. He's kind of citing Brent Spiner taking time with his son, Ira Stephen Bear, who's the showrunner in Deep Space Nine, doing the same. Rekha Sharma, who's Commander Landry in Discovery, really cool. Stuff you're talking about right there is why I want to go. Like, those kinds of experiences, just being able to like bump into somebody like that and have a quick back and forth with them is pretty special. I'm not surprised by the Robert Duncan McNeil pick. It makes perfect sense. I think you've always kind of been pretty consistent that Tom Paris is like your boy.
My favorite characters,
he's your favorite character in your favorite show. So it only makes sense that he would be involved. He's also a pretty prolific director too. So like in the stuff you were talking about earlier with guys who have some behind the scenes cred too, he would certainly fit in that category. So my number 4, this is where I come in with Discovery one more time. Sonequa Martin Green, I feel like I'd have to see. If we're talking like photo op and her, every time I've seen her speak about Trek, about Discovery, she's really engaging and really infectiously excited about it, and positive and smart and charming and beautiful. Like, she's got it all. And she's the lead of the current Star Trek show. So I feel like, if I had the opportunity to go to her, panel discussion or, have a photo op or get an autograph, I'd be crazy not to go to the lead of the current show. So that's an obvious one for me too.
She seems really fun. Like, she would be fun to kind of hang out with. Like, that's kind of that would be appealing to me too.
Agreed. Who's number 3?
My number 3 is Brent Spiner. I've just seen so many just videos on YouTube, social media. He seems to really enjoy going to conventions and interacting with the crowd. So he's my number 3.
Very cool.
Yes. Yep.
That's a good pick. He's on my list too, like high up on my he's not on my final 5, but he's definitely a good pick. My number 3 is the same as Rob's number 4. This is where I did delve a little bit into like behind the scenes folks, Mike and Denise Okuda. The thing that appeals to me about them is they were there from the Next Generation through Enterprise. They had their hands in Star Trek 5 through Nemesis, as far as for the movies. And I think Mike's first experience was like a brief little thing on 4. So even going back to 4, they have some ties. And they were big in the TOS remastering. So they've touched like
everything, every corner of Star Trek.
They are heroes for Star Trek. So to me, they are they're kind of no-brainers for me. They're not actors. They're not like faces that everybody knows. But I think all major Star Trek people know who they are. People who love Star Trek know who the Okudas are. But yeah, they've touched so many things. They have their hands in so many different corners of the Star Trek universe, and their knowledge is so kind of extensive, and they can talk about things that the actors can't talk about. As far as like the production goes and the look of it goes, and my respect for them is just so kind of through the roof that there are people that I would want to go out of my way to like just get an autograph and talk to for a few seconds. Like if I could bump into them in the dealer's room or something. Like there are people who I'd like want to like just talk to and have like casual conversation and ask them like about their experiences and stuff. So they are they're in rarefied air for me. That's what I'm saying. Yep.
Yes.
Number 2 for you.
Number 2. I couldn't leave him off my list. It's my favorite captain. William Shatner is probably my number 2. I'd want to see just him being my favorite captain. I feel like I would just kick myself if I didn't. And he's so iconic that I have to get a picture or just a talk, just a quick 2-minute conversation.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Shatner's not on my list, but I've seen Shatner before as a kid.
Okay.
And he given that he's in his 80s and who knows how long he'll be around, if I go to a Star in the next couple of years, I would feel like, got to go see him. You know,
Yeah.
gotta like at least experience him
Yeah.
again as like an adult, not just a 9-year-old or however old I was. But you know, he's definitely seems to have gotten controversial over the years. He says some things on Twitter that bother some people, and there's a lot of like pushback against him.
Yes.
But you know, beyond that, you know, I would feel obligated to like just go and see him at least once. So he's to me like a pretty natural pick for something like this for somebody like us who doesn't go all the time.
Yes.
You know, he's not somebody that you know, we've seen year after year after year and heard his stories over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, makes perfect sense. For me, my number 2 is Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be on your list.
Yeah, and he would have been on my list before yesterday. But you know, Picard's obviously, like I said, my favorite character in fiction. Patrick Stewart is, you know, a voice that's in my head all the time. Made a huge impact on me as a kid. So that's a must do. I don't think I've ever seen him. Like even as a kid, I don't remember ever being around him or watching him on stage. But he's another one who really seems genuine when he's in a setting like that. Always has cool, interesting stories to tell.
Yep.
But given recent news, you know, kind of like I was saying with Sonequa Martin Green, Jason Isaacs making current Star Trek, Patrick Stewart's going to be making current Star Trek again. So kind of goes without saying, he's a kind of a twofer. Like he's the epitome of Star Trek to me from the past, and now he's going to be on the forefront of new stuff too. So kind of a no-brainer for my money. He's the one that I would shell out. Like we're talking about, you know, Groppler Zorn is talking about Sonequa Martin Green's price point for like a photo op is $100, same as Shatner and same as George Takei. And that's like above everybody else. Like they're the high points. I would probably do $100 for Patrick Stewart. Like that's the one that I think I would hit that peak for. I would go that deep for. So Rob's number 2 pick is Mary Wiseman. And his number 3 before that was Michael Westmore. So both really cool. Yes, Michael Westmore is a really good one. And Mary Wiseman, like I was saying with Isaacs and Sonequa Martin Green, anybody who's making current Trek is high up on the list for me. We have a new guest, Jill Moreland's here, who has interacted a good bit on Twitter.
Good to see
welcome. Yeah. Rob's trying to guess our picks. He thinks one of us will pick Nana Visitor. We'll just have to see.
Yes.
Who is your number 1 pick?
My number 1 pick, I talked about this earlier in the show, that I try to pick actors that have some experience kind of in the...
I know it is.
in the in the kind of behind the scenes, but also just a huge career, kind of especially in Star Trek. So I'm sure you guys know who it is. Rob just guessed it. It's Jonathan Frakes. I think that he would bring so much. He has so much experience in not just the Next Generation, but directing and kind of behind the scenes. Also, he cameoed in a bunch of other shows. He's starting to grow his kind of his director career outside of Star Trek. So I would have a million questions. Yeah, he's my number 1.
That's a really good pick. I toyed with putting him at number 1 because of a lot of the same reasons you kind of just said. He has the behind the scenes cred. He's somebody he's obviously Riker in TNG and in the movies, but he's been in Deep Space Nine. He was in an episode of Deep Space Nine. He directed a handful of Deep Space Nines. He was briefly in Voyager and directed a handful of Voyagers.
He was in Voyager, yeah.
He was in Enterprise.
Enterprise, yeah. Controversial, but yeah, he was in there.
He was he directed Discovery. So he's another one who's got a lot of like experience working on the sets of all these different shows and kind of knows the vibes of these shows.
Yep.
So and that's the kind of stuff that does really interest me, like the nitty gritty, like behind the scenes kinds of stuff. He did not make my list. I feel really guilty about that. I'm glad you put him at number 1 though, to give him the love he deserves.
Yes.
So Rob's guessing for me, Leonard Nimoy, if he was still here. If Leonard Nimoy was still here, I would probably have him at number one, but he's not still here. Connor Trinneer is a really good pick. Everybody knows my love of Trip Tucker and Enterprise. That is not him. Mine's a cheat. It's a definite cheat. Nobody's going to guess it because it's too broad and it's stupid, but it's the truth. It's it's the writers in quotes. Like it's any writer. Ron Moore, Brown and Braga, Ted Sullivan, Ira Stephen Bear. Like they're the ones that I really want to talk to and really hear from because the stuff that interests me the most, the stuff that excites me the most in like learning about Star Trek is their end of things. Like how did storylines get cracked? Like why did they choose to do this with the character and not that? Like how did this episode become that episode? That's the stuff that really interests me. So they're the ones who I would go out of my way to like bump into, and they're the ones that I would want to like run into at Quark's bar at STLV and have a beer with and just ask questions about like, you know, during Deep Space Nine's like the Dominion War, like how did you come up with this and that and that? Like how did you figure it all out? Like somebody like Brandon Braga, I could talk to Brandon Braga for like a week straight, like, just ask questions. So that's my honest, truthful, like that's who I would go out of my way to talk to and want to talk to, and want to ask questions of, and that's what I want to learn from. So definitely a cheat, definitely not. My number one actor would be probably Patrick Stewart would be the actor. If I had to cut all the non-actors out, it would be Patrick Stewart, and Nick Frakes would be in there, and a non-visitor would be up there too. There's a whole lot of them. The real thing is, especially on my first convention, I probably would go to a lot of these panels because I haven't been to them. I know I hear a lot of people who go every year who kind of say now at this point they kind of only go to a handful of panels. They don't put a lot of pressure on them because they've gone to them so many times over the years. And I guess once you've seen these actors 4 or 5 times, you've kind of heard all the stories and you know what they're going to say. But for somebody like me, I don't have that experience. So I probably would want to go see a lot of these people. And I'd feel like, man, I got to go see Robert Beltran and I got to go see, you know, Colm Meaney and Alexander Robinson, Andrew Robinson, all those people. Like I said, this is a really tough list to kind of craft because it all depends on my mood. Ask me tomorrow, and I'd probably come up with
it's a different
at least 3 or 4 different names. Patrick Stewart would definitely be there, but
that's the great thing about conventions is there's so many of them with different actors going there that you can just get hit a couple and
absolutely, for
get
sure.
A lot of
and I think like any kind of experience like that, whether it's the Star Trek convention or like any kind of vacation, I think if you're open-minded and you you know, don't put too many expectations on, man, I got to do this, I got to hit that, I got to see this person, see that person. Some of the stuff that you don't expect and people that you don't go out of your way to see might be the things that you come away with most excited about and maybe the most memorable things that you did. So there is a I mean, I want to see everybody, but the real answer to this, number one thing, people I'd want to see at a Star Trek convention, whether it's STLV or somewhere else, would be the fans. Like that's why I kind of wanted to not include them because it's clear. Like I'd want to go to meet you, Dan, like see you in person, and Ralph Zorn and Rob, and like you guys are the ones that I'd really want to go spend time with, and you know, that's the reason I really want to go. Grappler wants us to go in S19, and that's
the plan. We're working towards that. Yes,
yeah, we are. We've been talking about it for a couple of years, right? And I think we've both had our eye on the ball for maybe 2019. So that's the hope. That's the dream, and I think it'll be really cool because it sounds like there's going to be a lot of stuff happening. Now, by STLV 2019, this Patrick Stewart project will probably be kind of in the heat, full swing. Discovery 2 seasons in, and you know, a new movie in production. Like there's a lot. You said it yesterday. It's a good time to be a Star Trek fan. There's all kinds of stuff happening. You got a new movie. You got a couple new shows. Who knows what else coming? Shorts, and Tarantino's off on the horizon doing who knows what. Like
Great
it's
time to be a Star Trek fan, for sure.
it is.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. It's good to see you, Starfleet Boy. Thanks for dropping by. We'll try to stop by. It's like 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate you stopping by, Starfleet Boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I definitely agree with kind of what you're kind of saying. Like, above all, it's kind of seeing you guys.
The regular folks.
Yeah,
The,
yeah.
the fans.
The fans. Yep.
Yeah, especially, given what we do like on this and being active on Twitter, you get to meet a lot of cool people, but you never really meet them.
Yes. Yep.
So I'd love to put a face to a name and actually get to shake somebody's hand in real life and all that kind of fun stuff. Like that would take it to a whole nother level, what I'm already really loving and enjoying about being an active participant on Star Trek social media. All about hanging out with friends and fellow fans. Exactly.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And it definitely is. This is always a kind of a rough, like there's always a lot of really cool stuff coming out of Las Vegas. I love kind of watching the pictures kind of pour in and seeing what people are doing, but it's also like painful. Like, man, I wish I was there. Like, looks like people are having such a good time and doing nothing but Star Trek. Like, it's the one kind of time of year and place that it's like everything else kind of falls by the wayside. You're there for one reason, and it's that thing you love. And it's definitely very envious of the people who get to go all the time. Trek Live from STLV. I pretty much guarantee something like that might happen.
Yes. Hotel room internet is notoriously terrible, so
true.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, there would be challenges for sure, but we would do our very best to do something.
Yes.
Yes, but yeah, we're really excited about the future and the possibility of getting to do something like that. It's definitely something that we talk about and that I've wanted to do for years, well before Trek Live was a thing, and before I knew Dan, and before I was active on Twitter, before all that stuff. This was something I wanted to do, and it's getting to the point where it's just time to do it and stop talking about it, stop figuring out ways to do it, just make it a priority and just do it. So 2019 is definitely the goal. I'm really hoping to make it happen, and exciting stuff.
Yes.
The Rio had decent Wi-Fi, Grappler Zorn says. This is the value of having people talking to us that have experienced it and have been there. So thank you, Grappler. It's good to know. Yeah, so we kind of usually start off with this, and I'm just kind of curious to ask, before we kind of wrap it up, have you watched The Best of Both Worlds?
Like, I have not. I've been really bad. Still.
You've been busy. You've got a lot going on.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Well, you got good stuff coming.
Yep.
You're at like the high point of TNG, the end of season 3. Yep. Some really good stuff at the beginning of season 4. So I'm jealous. I am on a break. I finished Discovery last week, 2 weeks ago. Next weekend I'm starting TOS with the whole kicking back into gear. So look forward to that. TOS is coming. Really looking forward to TNG now for obvious reasons. Getting ready for that after TOS. So good stuff ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, Rob is watching TOS for the first time right now. That's
good.
A
lot of great stuff coming.
Yep, there's a lot of really good classics, and I've said it many times. TOS is something that I think it's a different animal. I know, Grappler, I've seen you talk about it. You've tried TOS, and it's a difficult thing. It is a completely different thing, pacing wise and stylistically. I find that I have the easiest time really falling into it when I just dive into it and I watch it like in bulk. And for my money, like the pacing stuff and the different style of it, if I watch it consecutively and I try to do it in a shorter span of time, I just kind of fall into it and it becomes the normal thing while I'm watching it. But I'm also saying that as somebody who's watched it since I was in a walker. Like it's not a challenge for me at all, but largely probably because I've watched it since I was a baby. So yep. Cool. Anything else you want to throw out there? Any podcasts? Anything you've listened to in the last?
No, but the end of the show was kind of podcast and other Star Trek content. Track Yards is live right now, I think. So
Oh,
I
cool.
think it would be fun if you guys want to drop in, do like an after party there. I might drop in for a little bit. They're kind of talking
Yeah, that'd be
about
cool.
uh, the Picard stuff, so
Yeah,
definitely drop drop by there.
we love
Rob,
live streams.
yeah,
For obvious reasons.
we definitely a live stream supporter, so definitely go support that. Rob says he was on the edge.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Rob guested as he was the co-host of the postcards from the Edge, I think, reading fan feedback on the season 2 trailer, which I'm really looking forward to listening to. I have not yet,
Yep.
but I certainly will.
Yeah.
Especially now that I'm like in this big Star Trek mood with all this new exciting stuff. I'm going to be devouring Star Trek podcasts this week, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to hearing that. Definitely excited to hear you on there, Rob. I love the Edge anyway, but having a good friend like you on there is more incentive to go check it out.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jill. Appreciate you subscribing.
Thanks, Jill.
Bye. Good to see new faces around here.
Hopefully see you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for swinging by. Cool.
That has been
about do it, right?
episode 58. You guys know the drill. The discussion doesn't have to stop here. Like I said, Twitter. We still got Discord going on. 58. Yeah, Rob's right. Next week, I think we'll be back to normal Saturday time. Topics still hasn't been kind of nailed down, but we'll let you guys know during the week like we usually do. So, yeah. Had a great time talking some Star Trek this morning.
Absolutely.
I'll see you guys. Yeah, we'll see you guys next week and on Twitter.
Yep.
Thanks for watching,
stopping
guys.
by.